to share it with you guys. This is in continuing in our series of being in exile. And this came from the Chronicles of Narnia. The Lion, the King, and the Wardrobe, C.S. Lewis. I don't know if you're familiar with this book and his writings, but it's really good. Really fantastic. And this particular section is written, and it's referring to God. That's what C.S. Lewis did. He wrote children's fantasies and stories, but he was always referring to something real rather than just a fantasy. So if you're not familiar with the cadence of what I'm reading and the characters, just kind of follow along, and I think you'll get the point. So if you don't know the storyline or the characters, you're going to learn them as we go. Let me just read an excerpt from the book about God and how we probably should respect and react to his presence. "It's no good, son of Adam," said Mr. Beaver. "No good you're trying of all people. But now that Aslan is on the move..." "Oh yes, tell us about Aslan," said several voices at once. For once again, that strange feeling, like the first signs of spring, like good news, had come over them. "Who is Aslan?" asked Susan. "Aslan," said Mr. Beaver. "Why, don't you know? He's the king. He's the lord of the whole wood. But not often here, you understand. Never in my time or my father's time. But the word has reached us that he has come back. You'll understand when you see him." "But shall we see him?" asked Susan. "Why, daughter of Eve, that's what I brought you here for. I'm to lead you to where you shall meet him," said Mr. Beaver. Is he a man?" asked Lucy. "Aslan a man?" said Mr. Beaver sternly. "Certainly not. I tell you he is the king of the wood and the son of the great emperor beyond the sea. Don't you know who is the king of beasts? Aslan is a lion, the lion, the great lion." "Oh," said Susan, "I thought he was a man. Is he quite safe? I shall feel rather nervous about meeting a lion." "That you will, dearie, and make no mistake," said Miss Beaver. "If there's anyone who can appear before Aslan without their knees knocking, they're either braver than most or just silly." "Then he isn't safe?" said Lucy. "Safe?" said Mr. Beaver. "Don't you hear what Miss Beaver tells you? Who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe, but he's good. He's the king, I tell you. You people are doing stuff that is not safe. You're going outside, again, your comfort zone, and doing things that for the average person is not safe. You're extending yourself to a place that maybe you have not been. Maybe you have. But every time you do that extension, you are gaining that new ground, that ability to overcome an unsafe situation. I constantly am, when I'm riding with you guys, and I know we have a lot of help from the sheriff's department, but I see unsafe going by you at 50 miles an hour sometimes. And that's not safe. I could get reprimanded for that. You never know when you're going to get the bite. But this is what I want to try to accomplish in us, is we realize that in our unsafe atmosphere that we're in sometimes, that we choose to be in, that in effect and in truth we really are, because we're in control. And we're in control of a greater, higher being than ourselves. In all things that are happening in this run, and with George's leadership, I think you understand that far better than anybody else could tell you. But I like saying it to anyone that can hear it, so they know exactly where you are finding yourself in any given moment. In that moment of unsafety, you are completely safe in your mission. This is your mission. This is your place. Here's a phrase that from Blaise Pascal: "Fear not, provided you fear first. But if you fear not, then fear." And that's a very good leadership situation that you should consider. Going into any situation, you should have that common sense fear, knowing what you're getting into and knowing how you're going to handle it. And then you can fear not. And you can be brave and courageous and get it done. That's an opportunity we have to recognize where we are in the midst of where we are and moving on from there. And lastly, I just want to piggyback on George's comments that he's been making for years now in regards to names. But I want to make this personal to us. I want to talk about your name. We know what we're doing in this mission of calling out names of those that have passed before us. But I want to give you a little bit of a feeling inside about you and me and who and what we are. What is a name? The history of the human race is in names. Our objective friends do not understand that. Since they move in a world of objects which can be counted and numbered, they reduce the great names of the past to dust and ashes. This they call scientific history. But the whole meaning of history is in the proof that there have lived people before us in the present time whom it is important to meet by the reading and remembering of their names. We all have to receive a name from others, our father and mother, to complete the process of being fully born and therefore being introduced, spoken about, and remembered by others. The name is the right address of a person, where they are. The name is the state of speech in which we do not speak of people, but in which we speak to people. No one can know me any deeper than just call my name. I have been moved in the last 2 days by knowing your names. I knew the people, and I knew what I saw on the videos. But when I know your name, no matter if I ever see you again, that moment of connection is unexplainable to me. Because no one can take it away from me. It's happened. It's a done deal. Just like I know your name, and I have heard the talk, especially you guys that are calling out the names at these stops. You know what it's doing to you. You know how you feel when you call these names. You know how we're going to feel when we call them again tonight. But I just want to say I'm calling your name because it's special. And it means something. If to nobody else, to me. And I thank you for that very much. George, I called your name.
Hey everyone.
Hey.
We've all kind of been here before. We have a couple of new families. Are they high? Hayes and Strickland family? Or is it the same?
Yes.
Thank you guys for being here and coming out to be a part of this. You know, it's been a crazy journey for a few days now. And so many families have come and gone into our lives, you know, every single day. And really, this is a huge family. I mean, this Gold Star community is a community that, you know, once you're in it, you're just like stuck for life. I mean, it is what it is. And as you know, at least the families know, that once you meet another family, once you know that another family is in that same club, that connection is instantaneous, because we all know what that feels like, you know. And there's no way of explaining that to anyone unless you're there, you know. And it's a very difficult place to be. And so to come out and be a part of this is really important. You probably heard this phrase before, but maybe not all of you, that there's only two defining forces in the universe willing to give their life for you. You know, the Jesus Christ for your soul and the American soldier for your freedom. Both very unselfish acts. There's another quote, if I can remember, it comes from John F. Kennedy, and it's more nation related. But he said that a nation reveals itself not only by the men that it produces, by the men that it honors and the men that it remembers. And that's really what we're doing. We are remembering. As Bill pointed out, names. You know, I've said this before, names are so powerful. It's one thing to hold them inside and to know that you have a loved one, whoever that may be. Very seldom do we ever ourselves call out loud the names of our loved ones that we lost, because we know their names, we hold their names. But to say those names out loud is so powerful that it takes on a whole new meaning and a whole nother emotion. And I guess that's why we thought it important, as an organization, to take it upon ourselves to say to these families, we haven't forgotten. We're not going to forget. And we want you to know that we are going to take on a mission, so incredibly large and kind of beyond our even scope of imagining. But we're going to take on a mission of calling out loud, every single name that we can compile, that would. Come on in, guys. This is the Bowen family. Hey, guys. Come on in, find a chair. So as an organization, not getting too far into the depth of what we do, or how we started, but we were established 10 years ago to bring public remembrance to the nation. I mean, that really is why the organization was created, to reach out and speak to the millions of citizens, the large percent of citizens who don't understand the military connection, the sacrifices, and on and on. And so we thought that if we could get the attention of a national audience, then eventually maybe we could get more of an understanding, in our nation about the military and about sacrifice, and the small percentage of families that have raised these men and women and have been married to them in whatever capacity that family unit is, and given them to all of us so that freedoms may continue. And so the creation of the Honor and Remember flag, everybody in here I'm sure knows about the Honor and Remember flag already, was our gift to the Gold Star families of America, to say thank you, and for America to have a way to send a message of appreciation. But that just wasn't enough for us, because we're always thinking about bigger and different ways of calling attention, to sacrifice and making sure that our nation knows about it. And so fast forward to today, or to 109 days ago, when we started this journey across America, 2.5 years ago, really, when we started planning to take and compile the names of every fallen service member that we could possibly locate, and put them on a tribute trail across America, and make sure that we called their names out loud so that they weren't forgotten. Not only for the families, because the families never forget, right? I mean, I can't, well, I'll ask, because I know it's a small group. The families carry their remembrance every single day, right? In one way or another. It could be a dog tag, it could be a tattoo, it could be a scholarship program. It could be whatever it is a family feels is necessary to keep their loved one's name out there in the public so it's not forgotten. Because everyone is not in the same situation. For instance, my son was only in a team of 3. That was it. He didn't come from a battalion or a huge unit, where everybody knew who he was. He was only in a team of 3. And so some families have a whole collective unit to embrace that and remember. And then others have very little. And, I'm okay. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just using it as an example, that everybody comes from a different place. And so some families, come from a place where even their own family has rejected them. After a time, it's like, gosh, can you stop talking about that? You know, that happened 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. And so everybody comes from a different place, you know, in terms of remembrance. So we wanted to make sure, yes, that the family knew that we haven't forgotten their loved one, but the nation knew that these men and women were not statistics, that each one had a name, a very specific and particular name, and they deserve to be recognized and remembered by all of us. So we began 2.5 years ago to compile the names of every fallen service member that we possibly could collect. And working with the Department of Defense and a lot of other organizations, we began to compile these names. And 2.5 years ago, it came up to a number of around 18,000 plus. We put them into a search engine that, and put them on a website, and then put that word out across as many channels as we could to get that shared, so that families and friends and just military connected individuals who may have lost a buddy or a neighbor could go to that website and look for a hero. Now, find a hero is the tab. And if they could find that hero, then the database then would direct them to where in the country we were going to honor that individual. In the state, by day, even by time, on the road. I mean, it was really an incredibly built search engine. I was blessed to find somebody who could put all that together. And then link it to maps. And I mean, anybody who I don't know these kinds of things, but anybody who may know data and coding and that kind of thing would realize how important and dynamic this thing was. So once you went out there and did a search for your loved one, if they weren't there, you could add them. And that's what took this to another level, because we began adding names of individuals who were not associated with the DoD, who did not have a public notice out there, and we began to add more and more names, because we were honoring not just battle casualties, which that's an easy one, but we were honoring all those who died while serving, regardless of circumstance. Please silence yourself. Who died while serving or as a result of serving, including those who have succumbed to the hidden wounds of post-traumatic stress. And so we began to encapsulate a database, which we believe is the largest database of fallen service members probably in the world, that have died in the last 18 years. So from October 12th, 2000 forward is what we started with in terms of gathering names. And our list now, in the last 2.5 years, has grown to over 20,000 names. So we took those 20,000 names, and then we organized them by their unique dates of death, because we had to have a manageable way to honor them. So we took those unique dates of death, which came out to about 6,000, a little over 6,000 unique dates of death, and we put them on a tribute trail across America. And we figured out a route that would encompass these 6,000 names, and then starting with the USS Cole of 2000, and then moving forward consecutively, we're moving across America, right? So for 109 days, we've been calling out names. Over 18,000 names now we have called. This is our 109th day, and we have run through 18 states to get to this point right here, this point in time. This is a historic journey. It's not something we're doing again. It's not something that we plan like, oh, we're going to do this every year. Although there's been talk that, gosh, we should have had some kind of a primer, because I can, if I had a nickel for every time somebody said, if I only had more notice, I would have had more people out here, and that's just not the way the cards were dealt. I think if we could do this again next year, it would be tenfold. But I think half of us would fall to pieces because of the emotional and the physical drain that it's been on everyone involved. I mean, everyone sees a piece of it, but we have a core team that day after day, 10 hours a day, every mile is calling out names and taking those personally because we know what those names mean and who they represent and the families that we know are out there behind those names is very, very emotionally exhausting. Not to mention the physical toll it takes. So to do it again, just even think about doing it again. It's kind of nuts. But I've done none of your things before, so I don't know. But we met some really amazing people, I will tell you. I think the people that are with us at the moment in time are the ones that need to be with us at that moment in time. And those are the ones that will receive the blessing, and of course those that are watching, because we're doing this live. But so that's been our journey, to take these 20,000 and name them one at a time across America. And without thought of circumstance or difference. We've had so many families that have come out and been part of this. It has been a truly amazing journey. So how many have watched the live feed? We've been doing this live. You guys have all watched the live feed. All right, so I don't really have to explain what it is we're doing. Mile by mile of what we're doing and how we're doing it. Our goal was to make sure that reverently and respectfully everyone was handled the same and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, we've had families out that don't even like each other, which is really hard, to have family units come out that are, at odds, at that, but not at that moment, but just knowing the dynamics of families and certainly circumstances. And, some people don't like this and some people don't like that. And, why do you honor this person? It's just, we make mistakes. We mispronounce names. I mean, there are so many things that you could probably pick at, an armchair quarterback. But we have done something that no one else has ever done in the history of our country. And that is collectively pull this large gathering of names and honor them across America. And if anybody thinks that they could do it better, next year we could give them our contest, right? And they could do it.
I will just give you everything.
Dan, can you bring that flag up here?
But
Please. Not going to blather on too much longer. But this visual says it all. This is a flag, and I know many of you already know what it is, but this is a flag that we've carried with us from Fort Irwin, California, which we started on April 7th. And I mentioned the database and the search engine, how you could find where we were. We even have a GPS locator. But this flag is covered with the names of heroes whose families took it upon themselves to travel whatever distance it was from whatever location they came from to whatever location their hero was, and find us and be on the side of the road, whether it be a 4-lane divided highway or a 2-lane, no shoulder, not even a ditch, to the side of the road, to hear us call their loved one's name for 30 seconds. 30 seconds of time. So I don't know how many names are on here. I'm going to ask somebody to figure that out once. Time, Dan. But there's a way of figuring out how many names are on there, and we will. Several hundred, I'm sure. But I just want to show you the impact of how many families thought to take the time to come out to wherever that was and be there to just hear power of their loved one's name be called out loud. And we've all hugged them. Every one of them. And we're not done yet. Right? We still have signatures left in this room that haven't been on there yet. Right? But the power of this, knowing how important it is to these families, should be a lesson to the rest of this nation on what these loved ones mean and the price that it costs to preserve freedom. Next, Dan. This validates the mission to me, and seeing the families and hearing their stories and appreciating their sacrifice. One of the things we do at the end of every night, and I could literally talk forever, and I'm not going to, but every night at the end of the day, after we've read those names all day long, in a really busy, rainy, windy, road noise environment, where often, and even signal going out, we, at the most, in our opportune times, we lose our signal. There may be a family watching at that moment, and we can't account for Verizon or the feed of our camera, but we try. You know, we've done the best to make this as accessible as we could for everyone. And so at the end of the day, we like to reread the names of those that we ran for, because we are able to read them in a quiet place. We are able to read them, you know, in a place where we have more than just our crew on the side of the road, because everyone knows how important these names are. And those that are with us who were not on the side of the road listening, and even though Bill traveled with us all day long, he didn't very often run up and get to hear some of those names, but we get to hear them tonight. And you, everyone, gets to stand in for those names. And that's important, because those families are not here. And you know, I said we make mistakes. I mean, we do. We make mistakes. But you know, my mantra has always been, if we're going to make a mistake, we're going to make it on the side of honor. And how hard is it to honor the name of an individual, even if it's not the right person at the right time? And so that will always be my go-to. We will always err in the side of honor. And so tonight we're going to reread those names, and you guys get to participate with us. And then when we're done reading our names, I'm going to ask if anybody would like to say a name out loud, someone we haven't read. And it doesn't matter if we've said your loved one's name, you know, a day before or whatever, it doesn't matter. But I'll give you a chance to think about a name that may have meaning to you and would like to be honored in our group tonight. And so, Kristen, would you come up? We ran for 141 heroes today, just so you know. Out of the 18,000 plus that we've run for in the last 109 days, today we ran for 141, over 47 unique dates of death. And that's one thing that I didn't explain is that, 4160. So collectively, we have run 4,960 miles in the last 4 months, and every one of those miles is really a unique date of death. So out of those 6,000 plus dates of death that we're going to be running for total, we have run already 4,960 unique dates of death. So it's quite an amazing journey.
dates that we ran for today were April 25th through June 29th of 2016. Sergeant Mark Douglas Armstrong, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer 3rd Class Tyler James Becker, United States Navy. Sergeant Daniel Eli Siddles, United States Marine Corps Reserve. Sergeant 1st Class Anthony Schwen Munoz, United States Army. Senior Airman Stephen Daniel Sparks, United States Air Force. Specialist Christopher Lee Cooper, United States Army. Specialist Andrew Juan Anthony Jr., United States Army. Master Sergeant Warren Earl Preston III, United States Army. Master Sergeant Adrian Jean Sechrist, United States Air Force. Sergeant John Andrew Stowe, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Scott Christian Bowen, United States Marine Corps. Specialist Bradley Keith Kirchhoff, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Casey Ann McHugh, United States Army. Senior Airman Zane Michael Montana, United States Air Force. Corporal Lorenzo Nicole Cooper Jr., United States Marine Corps. Lance Corporal Khalil Alexander Motley, United States Marine Corps. Lieutenant Colonel Claude Wayne Britton, United States Army. Petty Officer 1st Class Charles H. Keating IV, United States Navy. Seaman Apprentice Christopher M. Oler, United States Navy. Private 1st Class Travis Blake Walklin, United States Army.
Senior Airman Tyler Elizabeth Foble, United States Air Force. Second Lieutenant Travis Michael Jordan, United States Air Force. Petty Officer 1st Class Keith Wade Chilton, United States Navy. First Lieutenant David A. Bodders, United States Army. Sergeant Ladarius Trayvon McInnes, United States Army. Seaman James Derek Lovelace, United States Navy. Specialist Tevin Luis Tyan, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Charles M. Pannell, United States Army. Captain George Howard Fraser Alsvetter, United States Army. Captain Jacob Isaac Larson, United States Army. Petty Officer 2nd Class Rick Carlos Hernandez, United States Navy. Hospitalman Marcus Snoopy Rodriguez, United States Navy. Sergeant Ellsworth Allen Robb III, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Joseph Andrew Strickland, United States Army. Airman 1st Class Robert James Brown, United States Air Force. Sergeant 1st Class Tiara Charisse Bolden, United States Army. Petty Officer 1st Class Victor John Stanfield, United States Army. Sergeant 1st Class Elizabeth Angelica Gales, United States Army. Petty Officer 1st Class Cole Scott Dickman, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer 3rd Class Jonathan Daniel Luoma, United States Navy. Specialist Javier Enrique Aguilar, United States Army. Senior Airman Peter Warren Pope, United States Air Force. Second Lieutenant Harry Alexander Sinopoulos, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Jonathan Trent Harbin, United States Marine Corps. Chief Warrant Officer 3 Ronald Perez, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Michael Dwayne Duffy, United States Army. Airman 1st Class Robert James Brown, United States Air Force. Petty Officer 3rd Class Elijah Harold Twellman, United States Navy. First Lieutenant Raymond Leroy Gleaton IV, United States Army. Petty Officer 2nd Class Lucas John Ramo, United States Navy. Sergeant Michael Orazio Pellegrino, United States Army. Private 1st Class Emmanuel Daquan Pickett, United States Army. Sergeant Fernando J. Marino, United States Army. Corporal Blake David Creel, United States Marine Corps.
Private 1st Class Austin Tyler Agnor, Staff Sergeant Sierra Monette Rogers, United States Air Force. Staff Sergeant Richard Estrada, United States Marine Corps. Specialist Zachary Michael Debut United States Army. Specialist Andre William Elliott, United States Army. Private First Class Ethan Aubrey Lawrence, United States Army. Colonel Eugene Lewis Montigua Jr., United States Army. Petty Officer Third Class James Roderick McClellan, United States Navy. Specialist Jacob Jerome Fields, United States Army. Sergeant Marcus Lamar Nelson Sr., United States Army. Master Sergeant Joseph Daniel Harris, United States Army. Senior Airman Seaman Connor Allen McGrage, United States Navy. Petty Officer Third Class Alex Michael Ostrowski, United States Navy. Specialist Adam N. Campbell, United States Army. Lance Corporal Christian Scott C., United States Marine Corps. Airman First Class Richard Drew Winkler, United States Air Force. Sergeant Jerron Lawrence Williams, United States Army. Specialist Riley Dean McClure, United States Army. Specialist Brandon Austin Banner, United States Army. Specialist Yamin Sun, United States Army. Cadet Mitchell Alexander Winey, United States Army. Private Second Class Edward Lauren Gates, United States Army. Private Second Class Tashina Lynette James, United States Army. Private First Class Zachary Nathan Fuller, United States Army. Specialist Christine Faith Armstrong, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Miguel Angel Colon Vasquez, United States Army. Private First Class Isaac Lee Dion, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Joyce Hannah Peterson, United States Army. Captain Jeffrey Michael Cuss, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer First Class Christopher Robert Healy, United States Navy. Chief Warrant Officer 4 Christopher Michael Weems, United States Army. Airman First Class Christopher William O'Brien, United States Air Force.
Staff Sergeant Benjamin Gerard Ovest, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Antonine Michael Glass, United States Army. Staff Senior Master Sergeant Peter Gregory Long, United States Air Force. Lance Corporal Matthew Henry Kelsenberg, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer First Class Tristan Anthony Price, United States Navy. Specialist Bernardino Guevara Jr., U.S. Army. Sergeant First Class Merlin Scott Linkhouse, United States Army. Captain Joseph Eric Newton, United States Army. Airman Bruno Rodriguez Arrojo, United States Navy. Lieutenant Colonel William Edward Croft, United States Army. Master Sergeant Jose Manuel Cunha, United States Air Force. Staff Sergeant Hunter Lawson Davis, United States Air Force. Master Gunnery Sergeant Damon Christopher Grant, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Kevin Edward Rinke, United States Army. Lance Corporal Tyler L. Wilson, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Dwayne Cass Shaw III, United States Army. Petty Officer Third Class Dalton Alexander Hernandez, United States Navy. Specialist Benjamin Daniel Harris, United States Army. Senior Airman Timothy Caden Collier, Seaman Apprentice. Timothy Caden Collier, U.S. Navy. Petty Officer 3rd Class Tyra Linnell Voss, U.S. Navy. Staff Sergeant Devar Jr. Villegaros, United States Air Force. Petty Officer 2nd Class J. Timothy Eugene Dennison Jr., United States Navy. Sergeant Dougal Edward Mitchell, United States Army. Sergeant George Jackson Jones, United States Army. Specialist Dakota Paul Bird, United States Army. Specialist Sylvester Bruce Klein, United States Army. Senior Airman Derek Alexander Kazor, United States Air Force. Petty Officer 2nd Class Marcus Robert Stewart, United States Navy. Private 1st Class Garrido Jose Puello, United States Army. Senior Airman Jonathan James DeCoe, United States Air Force. Master Sergeant Robert Anthony Wells, United States Air Force. Private Hugo Manzo, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer 2nd Class Aaron James Bristow, United States Navy. Sergeant 1st Class Seth Allen Smallman, United States Army.
Petty Officer Matthew Craig Wilson, United States Navy. Sergeant Amy Allen Stillbeck, United States Army. Petty Officer Andrew Jared Clement, United States Navy. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Michael Stephen Adkins, United States Army. Sergeant 1st Class Nikki Therese Colbert, United States Army. Gunny Sergeant Daryl Joseph Kasinger, United States Marine Corps. Senior Airman Robert McRae Dean, United States Air Force. Tech Sergeant Ryan Paul Sweeney, United States Air Force. Corporal Yuan McCarre Bailey, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Joshua Jean Sanchez, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Maurice O'Brien Tucker, United States Army. Master Sergeant John David Phillips, United States Air Force. Specialist Christopher Allen McKell, United States Army. Sergeant Germany Vargas Silvestre, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Major Mary Louise Jones, United States Army. Senior Airman Christopher Michael Zook, United States Air Force. Sergeant 1st Class Jason Nathaniel Rogers, United States Army. Cadet Thomas Michael Surdike, United States Army. Private 1st Class Matthew Emery Silwatsky, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant 1st Class Michelle Lynn Beasley, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Juan Pablo Diaz Sr., United States Air Force.
$141 names today, over 57 dates of death. I said I'd give an opportunity for those here with us listening to say a name of someone that maybe wasn't read, or someone close, any generation of a service member. We really, although we run for and call out those that died during this period of the War on Terror, we really do honor them all. And we want to make sure that this is a comprehensive run, that we have an opportunity to honor so many more than even those that we call out. Does anybody would like to, no pressure, but if you'd like to name someone out loud, now would be the time. Just raise your hand. Start over here. Anyone here?
Specialist Brian C. King, Army, 2009 active.
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Daniel Lim, U.S. Army, 8 years ago today.
Anyone over here? Yes, ma'am.
Victor Calvin Hamilton Jr., Army, Vietnam.
Yes, sir.
My father, Brother Stephen Hayes. He served in the Navy in World War II. Don't know his rank.
Anyone over here? Yes, ma'am.
Sergeant First Class James Oshner, U.S. Army.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Gunnery Sergeant Justin Robert Bartoni, 3706 in Iraq.
Thank you. Anyone else? Or did anybody else? Yes, sir.
Richard Sutter, Quezon, Vietnam, 1969.
We just bow our heads for a few moments of silence and reflect on those names that were read tonight and those spoken and those yet to be read on our concluding journey to Arlington Cemetery. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. One last thing I'd like to do is mention that we run for the family. And, you know, unless a Gold Star family identifies itself, really nobody even knows who they are or that they even have a story. And so just with those in the room, if you have lost a loved one in military service, and it doesn't have to be at this time period, at any time, and would you please stand so that we can honor you, at least know who you are and be able to identify you. You lost a loved one, please. Thank you guys for your sacrifice. Please, if you don't know these families already, they're a small group. Please take the time to chat and hear why they're here, what brought them here, and hear about their loved one. Thank you, Bill. That's all I should recognize my team. I do this all the time. You guys know who you are. No, I've got a core team that's been traveling this whole committed time, giving of themselves and putting their lives on hold, many of them, quitting their jobs and coming and being a part of this for the last 5 months. And I'd like for them to stand up and be recognized, please. And there's been a whole lot of other people from Georgia and from North Carolina that, thank you for the North Carolina team for helping us the last couple of days and getting us through the next 6. Thank you guys so much. Could you kind of stand up too so we can, the North Carolina folks are here. And folks, just raise your hand. Thank you. And then we have a returning volunteer, Sean. Raise your hand. He actually started with us in California. He's a Marine by way, active duty. He started with us in California. He was going to be on the run for 4 days. And he thought, okay, I can do that. 3 weeks later, he was still running. He got his commander to give him, what do they call it, TDY?
Yeah, permissive TDY.
To give him the time off to run for 3 more weeks. Then he went back. Then he came back again. Then he got re-stationed to North Carolina. Anyway, thanks for being here, Sean. And did I miss anybody? Dean? No? Yes?
Our runners for the day.
Our runners for the day, did I miss them?
Oh,
Chris back.
Christian, yeah, 9 miles.
Christian came to run his dad's mile, and he ended ended up running 9 miles today.
Runs faster than the Marine does.
So really proud of
And he's
him.
10. He can outrun me.
So Bill, I'm done.
And one I found out about this coming in real soon. Sean, what's that baby's name?
Jake Dillon.
Jake Dillon. There's a new name for us. Not here yet, but on the way.
4 more weeks.
There you go. A new name to remember. We have some refreshments, food, deal, dinner, meal, whatever you want to call it, snack, whatever. Just eat it till it's gone. It doesn't last well, so we have to eat it all. So just touch somebody near you, go have a blessing, and then we'll just start eating that and have the evening go. All right? All right, let's all bow. Heavenly Father, we thank you for new life that happens every day. We thank you for the renewed life that we can all enjoy with you, Lord. We thank you now for these moments that we are together in life, remembering, honoring, but most of all, loving those that have passed and never stop loving. We thank you that we can love one another even here now on their behalf and in their honor. Thank you, God, for the goodness that you bring in our midst, for this time together, the food we share, and the life tomorrow that you will help us live. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
No.